Hey guys, everyone. Super excited to be here in India for IBW. Why don't we start with a round of introductions, guys?
So, hello everyone, good to be back in India in Bangalore. I'm Sebastien Borget, co-founder of the Sandbox and global ambassador for both the Sandbox and SANDchain, our new launch layer 2 over Ethereum. I've been in gaming since 2011, in blockchain gaming since 2017. The Sandbox, I don't know, who's familiar with Sandbox in the audience? Please raise your hand. Great. Like Sandbox has like a great team called Box right here, who's done doing an amazing job. We are one of the largest decentralized virtual world with over 8 million users that we brought to Web3, more than 400 major brands partnership. We are also very known for virtual real estate and brought on one of the top 100 cryptocurrency in gaming, which is Sand token. And now we're pushing this vision that we have to empower anyone to become a creator, making games with no-code tools, to like empowering anyone to create and make on a living from being a content creator. So that's the next step with SANDchain. I'm sure we'll discuss about it.
Hello, my name is Vishal Gondal and I'm the founder of NCORE Games. I've been in the gaming industry now for over 30 years because I started coding games when I was 16. I created India's biggest video games company at that time called India Games, ended up selling it to Disney, and then in 2022, I got back into gaming with a new company, and our game, which we have launched, is called 4G. 4G is, think of it like a team deathmatch 5v5 game set around the Indian Army, Indian themes, and the characters and locations around India. I strongly believe that in India we need to have games which are built on our storylines and culture. If you see China or Korea, the top games there, or even for that matter Japan, are all entrenched in their own storylines. And with Black Myth Wukong being a global success, I think Indian stories are just waiting to be explored in the world of gaming. And that's where the connection with blockchain comes up, because with our games, there is an economy within these games. And there is trading, all kinds of things happen once you are able to create communities of gamers. And that's where the blockchain play comes in. And I'm really excited to be talking about this. And luckily, I have one of our early investors, Animoca, here, who invested in NCORE. So excited to be here.
Yusuf.
Hello, my name is Yusuf. I'm the Chief Knowledge Officer at Animoca Brands. Animoca Brands' mission is to provide true digital ownership to everyone via the means of blockchain. We do this via a combination of investing in many companies. I see 3 of our portfolio companies here: Sandbox, NCORE, and Aptos. So I'm hoping they'll give the investor a slack, or at least give me the senior citizen handicap, either way. Animoca has also invested in many gaming companies, and we've seen the rise of GameFi. We've seen kind of what people perceive to be the flaw, and we've also been involved in what people call classical Web2 games. So I myself have basically done a lot of mobile game development, publishing. I'm one of those unfortunate people in Animoca who can recite the Apple review guidelines by heart, which is very unfortunate, But glad to be here, and over to you, Vinayak.
Go ahead, Vinayak.
Yeah, good to meet you all. Hey, I'm Vinayak. I work on the partnerships and business development team at Aptos and have been in the gaming industry for about 7, 8 years, so not nearly as seasoned as some of the veterans here, but gaming is what got me into tech, and very, very excited to be here. Some of our biggest projects at Aptos are in the gaming space, so excited to talk shop with all of you.
All right. Great, thank you guys. By the way, I'm Avi. I'm from MarketAcross. We're a PR and marketing agency based out of Israel, working mainly in Web3. Yeah, good to be here. So the title of our panel is Building Sustainable game economies. Why don't we start with maybe the obvious question, but not an easy one. How would you describe sustainability in this climate right now, where I would say NFTs kind of lost some of the hype? Yeah, go ahead. Sebastien.
Okay, I think like the first thing you have to look when you consider like what is a sustainable game is to think of a game not as a product that you launch once and it's over. Games are services. Games are actually platform nowadays, particularly with Web3 and digital ownership. So you need to provide like first the sustainability for the teams that have been developing those games and like the different actors who are evolving across those ecosystems, to be able to keep funding themselves and fund the economy of those platforms or games without like running dry on that economy and without any external influx of money not coming, essentially. The second thing is like a sustainable economy for the game, because now what we are seeking whenever we are developing blockchain-based game or games that use on-chain elements is the fact that the economy is a product by itself. The token is a product by itself. And many game developers, they are lacking the education, the financial literacy that is required to run a tokenomic model that actually is going to be sustainable in a way that it's not just like the decreasing progressively the reserve of the company to distribute it to as many players, and those players never returning the token back into the game, the platform of the ecosystem. So that requires a lot of thinking, a lot of like pushing toward like more healthy behaviors. The idea that you have to introduce certain KPIs like return on reward spends, in the same way like the traditional gaming industry has like returns on ad spend. The industry needs to evaluate itself into its capacity to generate revenue from the activity of its user in-game, and also the participation of users outside of the game, because like, they bring value, as we know, when there's distributed ownership and staker holding through tokens. And that's been a challenge. Now, to put things in perspective, the video game industry is one of the most competitive industries in the world. I believe that over 10 games that are in development, less than 4 will actually go live post-soft launch phase. And out of those 4 games that went live, less than actually 1 will still be alive within 2 years after. So this is one of the most competitive industry where, like, on one side, you want to be very creative, innovative, both on the business model and the gameplay. And on the other side, innovation and experimentation is usually not rewarded because of the existing established business model, which usually consists in, like, let's copy past what works, and let's not try to go too far away. So we have to navigate between those two aspects to create sustainable games.
That's interesting, the balance between the in-game activity and then outside of the game, kind of keeping that balance sounds like not an easy task. Yeah.
I think if you look at all the generation of games that started early in 2018, probably none of them are still active and as engaged with their token and their community of players as they are now. They had to evolve their product, their offering, take some of the learning that they compounded, including the Sandbox, including Axie Infinity, including CryptoKitties, including Dapper Labs with Top Shot, NBA Top Shot, etc. However, we are seeing new wave of game that's already compounded those learnings, and I'm sure we'll share some of those, how best practice, which seems to be more healthy, and also from all those learnings.
Go ahead.
So basically, you can't put the cart before the horse. So far, in the whole world of Web3, people were selling game NFTs even before the game was launched. So the whole thing was turned on its head. You need to first create a good game. You need to fix its gameplay, get players, then fix the game economy. And only when you have enough traction is when you can think of going on chain. What started happening was completely the opposite. People started first going on chain and then people were trying to build a game from there. That's absolute the worst way to do it. For example, in 4G and all our games, we have not even enabled any blockchain transactions yet, because till we don't reach a critical mass of transactions within the game economy, there is no point of going on chain. The second thing was that from a technology perspective, it is very important to have zero gas fee or as low gas fee, because already game monetization is a very, very challenging business. And in that game monetization, if you then have another layer of transaction fees and so much more friction, actually it reduces your revenue. So what we saw was users are used to, if you are in the app store, just go to Apple Pay or whatever and you immediately buy. Now you are telling them to go to a wallet and then do bridging. So gamers who are already playing games are already used to a interface. So if you're going to break that interface, that's not going to work. And lastly, I know Axie Infinity started this whole trend of play to earn, and that play to earn became something which spread like wildfire. But the problem was that people were not playing to have fun. They were playing to earn. And the day the earning stopped, the playing stopped.
Becomes a second job.
So the core is gaming is for fun. If you are not doing it for fun and if it is just another way to mine some coin, that's not going to work.
Okay. Yusuf, please.
So I think your statement was NFTs are dead, but NFTs maybe as a speculative element may be dead, but NFTs as a store of culture have never died. They always remain as a store of culture, right? When people buy a Birkin bag, right, it's basically the value of the culture, what it represents, right? Or a Bored Ape or an Azuki or something, right? In the context of gaming so far, right, I think the aspect is that NFTs will kind of capture the evolution of a player. And maybe that hasn't happened because the technology hasn't been there to build kind of composable or basically let your entire life be encoded in an NFT. Maybe the NFT standards have not evolved, right? Maybe to some extent.
You think the technology was too early for NFTs?
So technology is evolving, right? The technology of today compared to 2018, right? Today, you can see more and more products offering gasless transactions. Was very difficult in 2018, 2017 when this entire play to earn, right? What I feel, right, that as Sebastien pointed out, Web3 game designer has to basically cater towards multiple audiences. He caters towards an in-game audience. He caters towards a set of stakeholders who are basically not interested in the game, but interested in the token and basically want to get the economics outside the token, which may be outside the purview of like the person, right? Like, what is it that you're offering in the LP farming and other mechanics over there, right? There are, I would say, for those who are familiar with what Gabe Luden is doing with Limit Break, with ERC 20C, which is basically ERC20 tokens with hooks, which break the normal ERC20 mold. I think that could be I'm researching it to see whether that could be the evolution of a different form of game currency where it's not easily transferable. Only if you do certain things in the game do you get issued real game currency, which is transferable. So things which are valued on this, maybe that is more sustainable. Because right now, Web3 games attract farmers. And maybe that's needed to generate a hype. But over time, you need to reduce farmers to basically bring in the real people who are going to provide value into the game.
Yeah, couldn't agree with all that even more. I think I just want to double down on what Vishal, you said, because I think a lot of these developers have focused more on building a token before they build a game. And I think that has just been so detrimental, and that has probably caused a lot of this market perception that we're currently facing, right? Because it's hard to launch a token. I'm biased, but it's even harder to build a game. Like building a game is one of the most complicated and complex things that you could do. And the key part of that is because the game economy is tied to game loops. And in Web3 games, only the best few games that are out there have mastered those game loops, right? And figuring out how the gameplay can then contribute to a token incentive structure that will then loop in and feed the gameplay. That, I think, has been missed, and a lot of developers are now learning from that and fixing that.
And recently we saw what happened with CSGO, where overnight a centralized player completely destroyed the value of your CS assets. Now, that would have not been possible on a decentralized network, and that is where a power comes in. But you need to first have a game like CSGO and that kind of player base to kind of show that. I mean, that was like $2 billion worth of digital goods were destroyed overnight with CSGO marketplace. I don't know if you've been tracking that.
Right, thank you. Let's talk a little more concretely. I want to ask, like, if you had to choose one metric that you're obsessed with, I would say, what would that be, first of all? And has it evolved for you over the years? Has it changed from, let's say, 2018?
Yes. Well, first thing I want to clarify, because we all talk like we need to make fun game. Fun game. What does it mean? Fun game is not just a game like you're passionate about or it makes you laugh. It's actually a game where you're willing to spend money into more than your time. And then revenue should be like your North Star for any project. Revenues that doesn't come only from selling NFTs. Obviously, NFTs needs to have utility in the gameplay to justify the fun factor as well. And so the vision that most of the time, again, going back to these ideas like blockchain-based game are like two products. You either track on one side like daily active users, monthly active users, day 1, day 3, day 7, day 30, retention, and the LTV. Or you track like number of unique users with the wallet, AUM on chain of those users, how many transactions they've been performing, and so on. And this works for as long as basically the economy is substantial enough and you have sufficient reserve, so you actually make financial revenue by selling your own token. But when it's no longer possible in market like now, when like there's no window of opportunity for launching tokens, most TGEs are struggling, becoming more expensive in any of their costs. I think you should concentrate just on the concept of almost like the 10,000 super core fans and how you track for that smaller audience the return on reward spent. So if you give something, how much of that something you give is actually spent back, and how much of the revenue you make with the game contributes to the economy of your token if you have one. So that's what we've done typically. From Sandbox, we have those alpha seasons where we introduce a lot of branded experiences for several weeks. We used to be very generous in the reward and not track the return of like the token back into the economy. Starting season 4 and 5, we've been able to move the return on reward spent from 20% to 60% to something close to 80%. Of course, there's less active players, but they are more engaged, they're spending more, they're ready to purchase the skins, the battle pass to up their earnings, and it contributes to the economy.
So I think if you ask for what are the key metrics, right? And I think Sebastien has basically worked out. Key metrics, obviously there are some metrics which everybody looks for in a game. Daily active users, active wallets and everything. I think one of the key metrics you want to basically look at is also time played, right, per game, or sometimes how many of your players in game are interacting with, if you have a token, of the token outside the game, right? So they're treating your token as a token product itself, not as a token just within the game, right? Because that can mean that you are appealing to an audience, right? We, at this point in time, and maybe I'm wrong, right? You have to cater for, there is a class of audience who do not care about the game, who care about the token. They're basically in for, a financial upside. And maybe those people are providing the liquidity. They're providing the trading volume and things for the gamers to feel interested. Some developers, almost all developers use a token to raise funds, use a token for user acquisition, right? Instead of giving Instagram and Facebook money, you can give the game users directly, like, hey, play my game, get this much. But now I think it's about basically controlling it. You only get certain money back if you do certain things in the game, right? So over time, technology, tooling, targeting is improving, right? Earlier it was like spray and pray. You're basically just spraying your money everywhere. Now it's targeting, different like portfolio companies are building it. Like my colleague Manish from Cajun, like in a portfolio company, he's building something similar around that. So I think that's where, the ecosystem around helping games get better users helps games build better economy, right? So economies and also getting the right users are important, right?
So, just to add on this. So in our game, we currently have a token which is off-chain. So if you download Fauji, there is a token we call iSpice. So the biggest benefit we saw that was from loyalty. So one is that you have gamers who are playing, grinding on the game. But what we started doing was we started rewarding people to grind itself. And we saw that people who now have these tokens or these grinding points, their retention is at least 2 to 3x more than people without this. So I think one key aspect of this is the whole aspect of grinding and getting their loyalty. The second thing which we also saw was when they start accumulating the tokens, they have skin in the game. So now from just a gamer, you suddenly, as a gamer start thinking that, oh, I have so many points worth X value also tied up in the game. So that user gets a sense of ownership. So we get a lot more quality feedback because they are all now are having think of it like an indirect financial stake in the game. And finally, we have not yet enabled trading of this, but the minute trading happens, we believe that is going to get the virality loop because that's when people will start trading among themselves. We have not reached there, but I would say more than acquisition, people don't know the value of it. So we have seen that airdrops and all that has not really worked as much because people don't know. Like if I give everybody here ICE token, you will say what the hell it is. But somebody who's actually played the game and who's at level 10, suddenly getting an ICE token means a lot to you and you really will value it. So we are always seeing it from that perspective. Of course, at some point of time, we will take it on-chain, but already off-chain, we are seeing a lot of benefits of this kind of economics.
Yeah, I just want to add on the metrics piece. I mean, this might sound vitriolic coming from the four of us because we're all in the gaming industry, but I actually think metrics is something that the entire tech industry can learn from gaming. Every single application today is already gamified. You hear about this, everyone wanting to gamify an experience because they see how games can build a retentive experience so that financial products, consumer applications, even like your TV remote, your TV OS is gamified in a way that is basically modeled after games. But I was shocked to find out that the adoption of the metrics that they follow don't often mirror the same things that the four of us have spent our entire careers trying to advise some of these people on. I was helping this one project that was building an exchange, and their whole mission was to build a gamified exchange, like a gamified way to onboard people into the decentralized finance world. But they didn't know what LTV was. They didn't know what like D14 retention meant, and that's not a knock on them, right? It's totally fine, but that just goes to the state where so many other industries have borrowed so much from gaming, but not wanting to get into the meat of what makes gaming so special, right? Which is this obsession with building metrics and understanding what the data tells you so you can then build a more retentive experience. So long story short, my favorite metrics by far, LTV and retention. Those are the two metrics I look at for any project that I'm doing due diligence on. If those metrics check the box, everything else will matter to me.
We just hit the FTU at 85%, by the way. 85% FTU.
All right. That's very interesting. Thank you. Let's talk a little bit about inter-game interoperability. And my question is, do you see assets moving freely across games? Or is this going to end up more siloed, curated? What do you think for the, let's say, near future, 3-4 years?
Well, I think like to extend a little bit of what's been said before, like we at the end, like why is there all this gamification? Just to build like the meta gameplay on top of the game is the north metric is attention. They all compete for attention, user time, user attention. That attention is translated basically into like whether how much time you're going to spend within the game or how are you continuing to hold the asset instead of like selling it and so on. To increase how much time someone is going to hold on an asset, you need to work on not just the attention on social media and so on, but on the real utility. That utility can come from just within the origin game where the asset was purchased first, but it can also become like a vector of user acquisition if other developers are giving some perks, some benefits toward those owner of assets. And so the NFT itself intrinsically become for what I call like a yield-bearing product that can generate revenue for participation in one game, but can generate additional benefits like off-chain points or on-chain points and tokens from holding it. And concretely, for example, at SANDchain, we are going to reward NFT loyalty. People who've been buying across different communities and ecosystem NFTs and hold to them for a long time will be earning more points on our platform. And we've seen the effect of like when you have points, you're more tempted to use them, to consume them. It's a typical marketing technique. Oh, congratulations, you just received 100 points for signing up to my system. What am I going to do now? I'm curious. So you're going to go click, visit, browse until you see something you're interesting. I already got you into this. So interoperability, it should not be just thought as like, oh, I take my car in one racing game and I turn it into a weapon into another game. I think it's like a bigger layer of engagement and attention that should be leveraged for marketing purpose and acquisition purpose first.
So I look at interoperability as still very early today, right? The simplest form of interoperability, you can say, is fungible tokens. That I can look at accepting somebody else's fungible token in my game as a form of a vampire attack. Okay, you have XYZ. I think that game is dead or is dying, but I'm happy for you, to come into my game and try my game. I may give you certain benefits. So that's interoperable because the token standards are interoperable. I could give you a benefit if you own XYZ NFTs, which gives you like, I want to access that community, right? So for me, interoperability right now is a user acquisition, and in gaming, in classical gaming in mobile, it's very expensive. You have to start from scratch again. So, but here with Web3, you can build on top of others, right? I can basically, in my game, I can say like, hey, if you have ApeCoin or BAYC, you get this. If you have Azuki, you get that, right? So I don't know how many will participate, but the addressable market then adjusts itself, right? And you could say I'm qualifying the addressable market. If you want to.
Yeah, I think with interoperability, like, I think there's different viewpoints from different cycles, right? I mean, I think we saw the old myth of basically like having assets that can transfer between games, I think has evolved a lot to where I think like that's where a well-built game with solid tokenomics can actually define the next evolution of interoperability. Because I actually think like a token that's usable across multiple games is far more exciting to me, right? Because like that is how you can kind of build that stickiness, because not only do you do what Sebastien said earlier, where it's like you build this reward system in place that will incentivize people to go back, But then if you have an entire portfolio where that asset is usable, that's like expanding the reach of what your audience can then experience, right? And to me, that is what the next innovation can be, and that's what I look for in certain projects as well. And I wonder if you've seen that across your time.
Look, I think now with regulatory clarity happening more in the US, right? I mean, tomorrow, if EA were to decide to open, let's say, its game to the blockchain, right? If it had interoperable tokens across its different class of games, right? You had something which could be used in Madden or something else, right? That would basically open up an ecosystem-wide game. Or, including, let's say, you did something in Candy Crush, but you could bring that person into some other EA game, right? So from, the person, a game player basically feels that I'm buying into that entire ecosystem, right? So I think that you do that to some extent in basically what Apple calls it the ecosystem play. Once you get into the Apple ecosystem, you tend to generally buy other Apple products, right? I think gaming, right now, you look at games in isolation. Everybody wants to look at, an organization wants to build a family of games, and interoperability first can start within that family of games before it may be expanding across companies.
Yeah, I have one slightly different view of interoperability, right? Because gaming has always been having this console game, PC game, mobile game, and now there is Steam. We are already having several distribution platforms already. And there are a lot of complications in the distribution of games itself. Apple has its own set of rules. Google has its own set of rules. And payment, as you know, that there is a whole challenge on we having to pay them the tax for the distribution in a way. And then having an interoperable token is actually a very important thing. If you are a publisher or a developer like us, if I'm acquiring 10 million users, I want to figure out a way of retargeting these 10 million users without paying more money to Facebook or Google, because or these platforms who are constantly charging. So I think more than interoperability, this is actually a very important moat for publishers and developers. But I would say somewhere the platforms are trying to restrict it because they know that this interoperability kind of takes the power away, which is why, just like how we have DEX, there is a real reason to have a DEX app store or a decentralized store where people can actually first get access to these games. I think till the time the distribution is controlled by these few companies, we will always have a problem with using this.
So Vishal, actually, if you don't mind, just a follow-up to that, then how do we then fix the UA and distribution problem? Because I think those two things are tied, and that's actually something that I think blockchain is uniquely qualified to do so, because I think we've identified the problem, but I haven't seen the solution yet for UA. So I'm curious to hear this group's take on that, because that's actually a big problem.
And that's exactly the point, right? Because we have to keep going back to the same customer, and then we are paying so much money to AWS, to PlayFab, to Google Analytics. So we are kind of, as a games company, a huge amount of our cost is going in all this CapEx and all this OpEx, which should not be there. So UA, by the way, is the single largest cost for a games company, and that's what breaks you. And I believe that a good blockchain layer or a good token layer, which you can use across the system, should solve that. But unfortunately, nobody has been able to do this successfully yet.
So, if I can add on that, like
Sebastien.
a few things. Why are game developers ready to accept certain tokens as a form of payment? You take Bitcoin, stablecoin, Sand, why not? Because those tokens, they carry distribution. They carry audience with them. However, to your point, like not all holders are active holders. So you only reach a small portion. And where we're kind of failing as an industry or as a technology, there's no protocol that allows like communication and re-engagement to holder. Like you have just the wallet that essentially is holding. So in a way, right now we are not seeing at scale the effect because we are all acting in silo. Like, oh, if I accept that NFT, you can see it, but maybe I don't reach to a whole user base on what's available. There are some services where you connect your wallet, it scans your whole wallet, and it shows you a reminder of all the offers available, so you can claim back like tokens, rewards across different games. It's called The Miracle. It's been integrated with MetaMask, and through that, many games have seen a lot of re-engagement. It's one interesting option. The other thing you were mentioning, like how are game developer building on top of like the concept of traceability. Maybe you've seen the Craft World game from Hungry Dynamite Labs. I think they passed like the $1 million revenue. They moved to Ronin recently. And the basis of this game is like you buy an NFT once, and your mission is to collect and play across several other mini games, not published or developed by them, to be able to collect resources that you craft back into the main game. So essentially, it starts to build like a flywheel of distribution. And whether you enter through the main game or from one of the mini games, you learn about that. So it's also quite interesting to look.
So my take is, today Web3 gaming works, to some extent best on the web, right? But the users expect distribution as native apps, which are gate-kept by Apple and Google. There's no way you can build Web3 technology if you have to stay within the rules of Apple. Maybe some people are sliding past. Then it's a cat and mouse game, right? So until you have, let's say, somebody else builds a sufficiently big app store, or there's a new mobile OS coming up, which does not have these restrictions, right? You're going to basically, or users are accepting to basically play pure web games, which they used to play before, right? Before the advent of the App Store, right? Everybody played Flash games, right? HTML5. So you have to go back to that to experience it. But till the gatekeepers are there, Apple and Go, and they have no incentive to change, right? No matter how much the governments hit hard on them, they'll always basically come up with ways which work in their favor.
We're seeing like web as is like breaking free, like you're saying. Like, and there's this whole new wave of mini apps publisher. Yes. Started with Telegram and Line and Kakao, WeChat as well, where like games no longer require the Apple or the Google to be distributed and be played.
At some point, even Telegram now, if you read the rules carefully, Apple basically has mandated that everything be happening through stars, right? Which is effectively, and stars can only be purchased with IAP. So Apple makes the cut one way or the other, right? So I feel it's a matter of time. You need a completely different ground up like distribution, right? Maybe it's Android with a different, it's an Android OS but not controlled by Google, right?
In fact, I don't know if
we just need a Linux player to come in. We just need someone to build a Linux mobile device. Come on, free us from this.
In fact, Google just announced that from 2027, they're going to block any third-party app installation. So just like Apple, at least now you can sideload. Side loading is going to be shut. So it's going to be even more closed than open, actually.
Okay.
Thanks, guys. Kind of approaching the end here. So let's talk a little bit about the future. Why don't you give me a short opinion? What's Web3 gaming going to look like in 5 years?
Start this way. You want to?
Vinayak?
Man, 5 years. That's a great question. I would say that I think the next evolution in 5 years is going to be the acceptance of stablecoins within games. I actually don't think it's going to be as drastic in 5 years' time as some of the other things that could happen. But I think the lowest hanging fruit and the most probable outcome is that stablecoins will be a much more standard form of payment.
I feel in Web3 gaming in 5 years will evolve to a different standard to use than ERC20s and ERC721s. I think these standards are limiting to some extent what's possible with gaming. They are the bedrock of everything which is in DeFi and composability today, but they are also at odds with kind of like what game designers and basically want, right? It kind of, it creates a kind of mercenary market. Like I said, limit breaks, ERC20C looks very interesting. There isn't yet a breakthrough ecosystem around it, but maybe that's where work needs to be done. Newer standards, right? Standards evolve over time, right? HTTP did not come at the start of the internet, right? So 5 years down, maybe, there's a new set of token standard which are specific to gaming kind of needs.
So India has roughly 5 to 700 million gamers, the market of India. Recently, the government did a great thing. They banned all these gambling, real money games. And we are expecting a whole host of these people to finally play games which are legitimized video games. But one very interesting stat was the Indian payment system, UPI, in fact, NPCI has a booth here, real money gaming was a huge percentage of UPI transactions. So these games were using such network power of these transactions, and mostly they were P2P transactions. So if you just take that as a data point, and 5 years down the line, I definitely see that, especially with distribution costs going down, as more and more games implement some kind of stable coin or decentralized systems, I see India being one of the big leaders in this, at least from a transaction volume perspective. Recently, Geo also has come on the Aptos network, and Geo has also launched its own esports just last week. So if you combine esports, if you combine the gaming business, and in India the government is very pro gaming now. I don't know about blockchain or crypto, but they are pro gaming. So if there is a real chance of crypto to go to mass, it needs to figure out a way to somehow coexist or embed in the gaming ecosystem. That's the only way it could possibly reach 700-800 million people.
So, to me, the future of gaming is, there's no future of gaming without user-generated content. All the top titles, they will feature content made by users themselves, whether levels, assets, or mods, and that will contribute essentially to like the economy of those games. So you think titles like GTA 6, they're probably going to be there for at least 10 more years. It will grow a giant economy. But the success will not just be the initial game, even though it will be surely amazing. It will be everything that people will build on top of it, from creating their own mob, their own content, their own stories, and being able to spend into those games in the same way that they are spending into actual the real world. Every game will have a huge component of UGC. Ownership of those creation is going to be through blockchain, and payments could be in stablecoin, could be in the native token of those platforms, and that would be totally seamless. So we are no longer to be aware that blockchain is present in those transactions. Wallets are already a smarter contract base, so you don't know that you're using a wallet. And even AI and agentic AI will keep powering those economies and those gameplay without the players noticing as well.
Interesting. Okay, thanks, guys. I think we're at the end. I know Sebastien has a flight to catch. Thank you so much, everyone. This was super interesting. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you.